Hello, my friend Jenny. Great question. Very common belief here or perception, so I'm glad you brought it up. But I am going to be a bit straight on it, straight shooting. And we'll say that it's kind of a loaded question in this sense, loaded. A lot of times we will ask ourselves questions or ask other people questions or express ourselves. And the question in the statement is kind of loaded in the first place with a set concept. And in this case, but it's beautiful. This is perfect because it's so common. So thank you. So when I say it's loaded, what I mean is the question is keeping your identity in a relationship. Boom. Keeping your identity. Your identity. So right off the bat, right there. So there's already something set in place. There's already a condition, which we do. We have conditions. You know, it's great to aspire to being in relationships with no labels and no conditions, but we're not there yet. The best we can do is hope for that. Don't hold too tight to them. Mostly practice acceptance and forgiveness, but and try not to label, etc. We can work on those things, but we are going to have conditions in all things. You know, because a relationship really, there's right off the bat, you want to have an experience. You're already wanting something, because if you don't need anything, if you don't want anything from anybody, then you won't want to be in a relationship. You know what I mean? If you're so self-fulfilled, then, you know, like we see some rare gurus and monks and stuff, they don't seek that because it's not what they want. They've gone deep into one purpose, to serve and to explore themselves, and they're so full they feel no need or seeking to it. So if you're in a relationship, we have to be honest that on different levels, some more than others, they go to extremes. We see the very common and age-old, and really it's the biggest cause of our suffering, and we repeat it, is when we see the extreme on one end, where most people go into relationships because they haven't filled that hold in themselves, so they're seeking from others. And this is where we see the biggest suffering and why they don't work out, because that's the majority of them. Now, as we grow and we practice self-love, we still, you know, our relationships change and they grow and they strengthen and we strengthen. But still yet, we still all face it because there's still a want there. So it's good to be straight with ourselves. You know, if you're going in, it's too big of a thing to say you're going to go in a relationship and you and I are going to create a totally unconditional relationship. That's a great concept and it's great to strive for, but it's not really practical. We're not there yet. Walk before you can run. So of course that's something to aspire to, and you want to create that as much as possible. But the truth is, if you're going into a relationship, unless you just want casual, then, and you're straight up front, I just want to, you know, experience people and, you know, have some sex and whatever. If that you're comfortable with that and you're being straight with that when you're going out into the world with other people, then, you know, sure, then, but even that is kind of a condition, but it's, you know, a little more completely on the table, and if that's for you, great. But especially when you want a relationship, then you want slightly more wants there, you know, and whatever they are, you know, that's fine. Be honest, transparent about it, of course, and be practical, of course. Try not to go into it with a laundry list, because a lot of times that's what people do, and then you're putting somebody into a box. A lot of times they'll find someone who fits it all. But then, you know, we're animals, we're creatures that are prone to amnesia and prone to taking things for granted. So eventually we will take all these great qualities for granted, and a new list will form of things what they're not doing for us. So you definitely want to try not to build lists. If you have them, let them go, whether they're lists of positive or negative, whatever, and just try to see them. So try not to be too seeking in a relationship if you can. Always fit, and if you're feeling you are, return to yourself, return to stillness. Keep your own growth, your own self-love. That's the most important romance to always nurture, always. if you want to be in a relationship, great, but you should be in two simultaneously. Never switch one for the other, where a lot of people get in trouble when they say, I'm losing myself or my identity. It's because really more, quite often, if not always, it's because they're starting to get what they need solely from that person, or they're giving too much and they're not giving enough time to themselves, and they're not returning. So always return yourself, always nurture both. You're always going to be in one or two, or more maybe, but most of us, one or two love affairs. And if you're in a relationship, you're in two. One with yourself and one with the other person. So you have to give equal time to both. And one will behoove the other. One will benefit the other. So a lot of times it's a perception. We put it into, I have to choose. But anyways, I'm getting carried, I'm getting off, not off topic, but I'm branching out here. Let me reel it back in and get back to the thing that really struck a chord at the beginning, the one I labeled a loaded question or loaded topic, and that is, but perfectly so, and that is how to keep things into perspective. That's the other question. Sorry. Keeping your identity in a relationship. So for me, and this happens with a lot of us as we go deeper into spirituality, but we each have our own ways and our own directions. But a lot of us start to come to the awareness that we aren't our identities, and we embrace letting those go. I'm not Michael P. Burke. I'm not Mikey. I'm not Mike. This is just a character. I don't buy into it anymore. I let that go a long time ago. Occasionally I get amnesia and I get pulled in a little bit into the character, but for the most part, I know I'm not this character. There's something behind it. It's just an expression of the one. And now I let it be the expression. I don't fight it. I let it be whatever it is, this silly character that's Mike. And I even enjoy my character, but I don't really believe it. I don't define myself by these traits. I'm much more than all of this. I'm not just a wise person or a loving person or a happy-go-lucky person or this or that. Those are just traits, and those traits, change and expand, and, they're just as I have. So, for me, so it's up to you, but I highly recommend right off the bat, don't keep your identity. Because we see this a lot, and I've experienced it too in relationships where one or both come in and they're protecting themselves. So if you want to really have an open, loving relationship and be as unconditional as possible and as accepting as possible, you have to let the other one be who they are. And you have to be accepting of it, want to embrace it, and know that there's going to be tough times and magic times, and be wanting and willing to experience that together. You're searching for a togetherness, for a union, to have an experience with another person if you want a relationship. So you can't have both. Well, you can, but it's going to cause problems. When we go in protecting ourselves with our hands up, and we're not being completely transparent selves, and not being completely open, or we're protecting, or we're hiding, or we're fibbing, or we're lying, that doesn't benefit us. It doesn't benefit us in everyday life, and it certainly doesn't in a relationship. So if you're trying to keep an identity, no offense, but from my perception, you're protecting yourself. You're hiding. Perhaps the other person is too. We often trigger each other. But whatever the cause, look into that. Why? That's what I would ask yourself, Jenny, and anybody, and I'm sure the many, many others that feel the same way. Why are you trying to keep an identity? Your identity is not you in the first place. What are you afraid of? And do you really think you're going to have the true magical experience that you want, the union, the bond? Do you really think you're going to go that if you go in protecting yourself, trying to keep something? So for me personally, and I think it benefits us all to at least try this. And we do see in the rare cases of long-term relationships where they really have that bond, we can see them practicing this, and that is that they're totally open and accepting of each other, and they're working through it always, even the tough times. They're not running from it. They see the gift, even when the person can be such a pain, but they don't lose sight of the gifts. A lot of times we start to take for granted all the good stuff, and then all we start doing is creating a false identity for that person, that they're just this and this, and we forgot all the wonderful things they still do and are, and the light that's behind it all. So, but again, and that's where the war happens, when when they slam up relationships and it becomes fight or flight, and it's because both are trying to keep and protect themselves, and then they get their fears trigger each other, and then they start fighting, and they're scared as hell, and they're trying to protect themselves. They're trying to keep their identities. So I would say, ask yourself, why would you want to keep your identity? You're not going to disappear. That's what people, so many of us, so many in the world that say this. Look at you really think you're going to disappear? You might get lost in the chaotic exchange, but you're not going to lose yourself. You can't lose yourself. You're always there. You're always there. It's an illusion. You're afraid of an illusion right off the bat. You're afraid of an illusion of an illusion. It's an illusion that you're going to lose yourself, first of all, and you're afraid you're going to lose an identity, and the identity is an illusion to begin with, because that's not who you are. You're not the same person you were 10 years ago, and you won't be 10 years from now. So it's a fear of an illusion of an illusion. So does it benefit us to step into what we've asked for by vibrationally and mentally probably too? We've asked for certain things. If we want to get over certain challenges, that's who we're going to attract people that would trigger those things. They're gifts. And yet we get mad at them for it. There's a whole other way to approach it. You can see it as a gift. And if both can be committed to embracing the gift, both the light and shadow, and can stop protecting themselves and open up to it, then magic can and will happen. And a bond will be created that's even, deeper. So, again, the shorty of all that is, the question is, why would you protect yourself? What are you afraid of? What are you trying to keep? Are you obsessing on or swimming in the mind and in fear of an illusion of an illusion? And why would we try to keep our identities in general in life in the first place? They're limiting. You limit yourself when you say, I'm this and this and I'm always this. No, you're not. Nobody's always or never. I learned that from a therapist many decades ago. Couple decades ago, couple marriages ago, I went to a therapist, and one thing that did help, and that I always loved that he said, was when people are talking to each other, watch your language, because we'll always say, you always do this and you never do that. That's an illusion and a falsity from the start, and it's a loaded statement, because it's not true to begin with. Nobody always or nevers. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. So you get the picture. I hope this was helpful. Return to yourself. Ask yourself, what are you protecting? What are you trying to keep? And does it benefit what you would like to experience or create with this other person? Thank you. Awesome.